breaking ball and a call. Strike three. Third strikeout for Zach. He's going to just watch it go. A grand slam for Bryson Stott.
And there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, Phillies make their first big trade of this trade deadline. Dave Dombrowski did the thing. Everybody, they go out and they get one of the top guys on the market, one of the guys that they had been really pining for, a young, controllable, elite reliever. Jhoan Duran is on the Phillies for the next 3 years through 2027. Of course, the prospect package, Eduardo, Taite, and Mick, Abel. So Dave Dombrowski with maybe his biggest trade deadline acquisition during his tenure here in Philadelphia, helping me to break this trade down. And we'll take a look at some of the other deals that have gone down here as we are just 1 day away, recording this on Wednesday night from Thursday's trade deadline. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus. Of course, our Patreon podcast, The Dirty Inning and Absolutely Hammered. Follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh. Buddy, Dave Dombrowski went out and got the guy. I mean, if you'd made a list of all the guys, I think actually this was the guy that was number one on your list, was it not?
I think we were drafting off the available or trade candidate board, and yeah, this was the top guy I picked.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was, to see this being the name in the deal was that's great. That's thrilling. I like the trade, fresh off the just surface level looking at it. I don't feel like the Phillies gave up anybody that should be either heartbreaking to give up or surprising to give up, given the purposes Phillies needed them for this season. So,
right.
I like this deal. I like this deal for the Phillies. I like that it improves the back of their bullpen. I like that it gives you another option out there. And I like that they really stuck to their guns when they said, we're not looking for rentals. We're not looking for brief upgrades. We're looking for people who can keep contributing to this team past this year. And that's what they got. So, yeah, initial thoughts, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted a guy who could be their established closer for this season and next season. And then you have labor issues with baseball. Who knows what happens with baseball in 2027? I mean, I think that's part of the thinking here with the Phillies is like their window is these next 2 years, given some of the uncertainty that's coming down the pike. And you have this core here for just a little while longer. We saw from the game here on Wednesday afternoon how badly this team needs late inning relief help after watching Max Lazar and Seth Johnson implode against one of the worst offenses in baseball. It was disgusting what happened.
Max Lazar just starting to get his flowers like the past week or two, where people he's actually been pretty good. Like his turn to be the guy who maybe isn't so bad out there, and then they lose a series to the White Sox by getting utterly stomped out of Chicago.
Stomped, yeah. That was not a good series. But you could see how acute the need was for a guy like Duran to come here, be that ninth inning guy, or maybe it's the eighth inning if you're facing 2, 3, 4 in the lineup or something like that. But in an October series, this is the kind of guy that the Phillies didn't have in the bullpen and wouldn't have had in the bullpen with Jose Alvarado out. I should note that in the playoffs, he doesn't have a ton of playoff experience, but he has faced 18 hitters in 4 postseason appearances, 2 hits allowed to 18 postseason hitters, no runs allowed, 6 strikeouts, and 0 extra base hits. And again, just a very brief playoff career, but he does have some playoff experience. And he comes into to the Undertaker's theme music. They turn all the lights down in Minnesota, like it's a whole show that is coming to Citizens Bank Park. I think Dave Dombrowski and the rest of the Phillies front office understood this is a team that can win the World Series, but there was such a huge hole in the back of this bullpen, and they really believe Jaron Duran is the guy to fill that need for this year, next year, and the following year.
Yeah, and the Phillies are now being very, very clear, as Dave Dombrowski has passed on to Matt Gelb and Todd Zolecki, that not only are the Phillies done with looking for relief pitching, they are shifting focus for a bat, and also that, Duran will be the Phillies closer, and that will no longer be a carousel of perhaps terrors or perhaps who was hottest at the time. It's going to just be his job, which is interesting. So, Phillies are taking a very direct approach, and I think a lot of people are going to feel some anxiety about how active the Mets have been about their bullpen, and the Phillies, getting Duran David Robertson, Alvarado back for the stretch run, and people are going to measuring those two things together. And the Phillies were not as active, but they are addressing their biggest issue. And I think they're hoping that a couple other things can just sort of come together so that they're able to focus on their lineup as well, which might be coming as a surprise to some people.
So what do you think of, we'll talk about Duran. Let's just talk about Duran first, and then we'll talk about what the Phillies gave up, because I think that's obviously an important part of this. But Duran is a guy who has absolutely electric stuff. A 2.01 ERA so far this season, a 214 ERA plus. His average fastball velocity is 100.2 miles an hour. He's in the 99th percentile in limiting barrels and getting ground balls. He's only given up one home run this year. It's just one home run in 49 and a third innings this year. He has not given up a home run to a right-handed batter all season. That last stat tweeted up by Sheil Kapati a little bit earlier in the day. This is a Phillies bullpen that has a 4.33 ERA going into the game on Wednesday where they got blown up. 23rd in baseball. It only went up. 17 blown saves are fifth most in baseball. This is a guy who can come in right now and is an elite bat misser. He's an elite ground ball machine. The playoff numbers are what they are. He's your guy that for the first time really this season you feel like you have confidence in a reliever to close out a game, to get 3 important outs in a close game. That's invaluable. If for nothing else, then for the psychology of the players who on the field, they get into a game, it's late and it's close. And I got to say, as much as I like a Ryan Kerkering, as much as I like Matt Strahm, and as I like some of those guys, the confidence level that those guys are absolutely going to get it done is just not there most of the time. And with Jhoan Duran, I think you have a guy that, at least you better have a guy who is going to get the job done when the time comes. Nobody's perfect, but he's about as close as you can get to it in this trade market.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but let's be clear. The Phillies didn't trade prospects for a hot reliever to keep up with the Mets. They acquired one of the best closers in the sport to be their closer of the future.
Yeah.
So coming into this season, Duran was known for his splinker, which is a pitch so confounding it worked itself free of normal pitching terms and forced his evaluators to come up with one of those wacky ones. So it moves like a splitter. It has the speed of a sinker. It can hit top speeds of like 97 miles an hour. And that on top of a 3 or 4 pitch arsenal and a 4-seamer that regularly hits triple digits made him one of the best relievers out there. Since 2022, hitters have started to be able to see and hit the splinker a little more. But he's gotten better at throwing it, is the best part. So now instead of being a pitch that they chase and miss and whiff at, they swing at it in the zone and just make terrible contact, and then something very frustrating happens almost all of the time. Baseball Prospectus reported that as the second highest miss-hit percentage of any pitch since 2022.
Wow.
And you mentioned his ground balls. 65% ground ball rate indicates that, that's true. And that's a career 63% ground ball rate, so that's not something new either. He also has a curveball we haven't even mentioned yet. That's occasionally been his best pitch throughout his career. So the story on Duran was that the strikeouts have gone down, but the weak contact has gone up, resulting in equally, if not superior, outcomes. He's 26. He could feasibly be closing out Phillies playoff games for the next few years. And if you hear somebody say, well, his strikeouts are down, then now you know why. You can point to, but his weak contact is off the charts. If you hear somebody say his velocity's dropped, well, that's because he used to be able to throw 104 miles an hour instead of 100. And that's kind of it. That's why this is, this is really good news. You might have an argument that the Phillies should do more for the bullpen. I totally hear that. I wouldn't mind it. But what I just told you about this guy, that's kind of it. There's no and then we turn the page and here's the part of the story where all of his arm bones flattened for no reason and the trainers were baffled. No, that didn't happen. It's just, the ESPN write-up on trade candidates for him just said, Duran is one of the best relievers in the sport thanks to his nasty stuff, headlined by a fastball that averages over 100 miles an hour and a splinker that sits at 97. He has 2 more years of team control after this season, so he'd demand a big trade package. That's it. There's no cons in that sentence. I guess big trade package, I guess. But if a big trade package is a AAA starter struggling to adjust to the majors and a teenage catcher, even if he is the first top 100 prospect traded at the deadline for a bit, I would trade a big package for Jhoan Duran. So any day.
Yeah. This is less, and I want to talk about the package because I think that's obviously an important part of this. I think this is an entirely fair package. I get why the Twins pulled the trigger for this because in Eduardo Taite, he's the number 56 prospect according to MLB Pipeline. Most folks have him as the team's number 4 prospect. Some have him as their number 3. Either way, he is a really good-looking young power-hitting prospect. He is just 19 at high-A Jersey Shore. There is some question as to whether or not he'll be able to stick at catcher, but he's still a long ways away from knowing the answer to that question. But clearly a great prospect and one that you didn't want to give up. And in Mick Abel, he's a guy that everybody had given up on heading into the year, and credit Mick Abel for really helping the team in the biggest way that he can help them this year by turning himself back into a legitimate prospect, a legitimate part of a trade for one of the best relievers in baseball. The fact that I'm thrilled that they didn't have to give up Miller, Crawford, Painter for Duran. I really would have thought that one of those guys would have had to go in a trade for this guy. So while I'm not happy giving up either of these guys, you have to give to get. And my thinking on this is the reason it's fair is because this trade does hurt, but it hurts the correct amount. Any trade that you get, they didn't fleece the Twins, and the Phillies also didn't get robbed. There are reasons this trade works for both teams. I would give both teams a very high grade for this trade because it's logical. There is upside to all of these different players. It hurts just the right amount, I think.
Yeah, and don't let me sound like I'm talking down on Eduardo Taite by calling him a teenage catcher. You focus on that aspect of him because that's kind of the defining trait. You say there's still some questions to answer. At 19, there's almost exclusively questions to answer because any success that he's having, the question is, okay, but can he sustain that as he continues to be promoted up through the system? So what I focus on in that case is just the complete mystery of player development that will occur over the next several years before he is capable of being a major league catcher, and that much mystery and ambiguity I am willing to trade and gamble on because it is repeatedly not as big of a threat as it can feel like it is.
Just looking at some Dave Dombrowski quotes, he told reporters in Chicago after the game regarding Duran, quote, "We just thought he was the best guy out there, really is what it came down to. That was available to be acquired. We felt this was a deal that we got a dominant closer for a tough price, 2 good players, but something that we thought makes sense." And he is under team control for the exact same amount of time that Zach Wheeler is under contract. I mean, I think you're seeing maybe this window, we've talked about wanting to keep the window open for this team and to keep supplementing, but I think there is a crystallization of this window for this team, and it's through 2027 with Wheeler. And I think we all agree Schwarber is going to be re-signed with this team.
I was going to say, I don't know why, but you saying that made me think, yeah, he's definitely working out how he's going to approach Kyle Schwarber.
No doubt about it. I think so. I mean, there is a window. It's here, and I get a lot of this online. I'm sure you do too. Just the amount of I get the fact that this team's played 500 balls since June 1st, right? They're not playing inspired baseball. They haven't won 3 in a row in more than a month, and losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox after winning series. They've lost series against the Angels and White Sox and won series against the Red Sox and Yankees. They've
swept the Blue Jays when they were the hottest team in baseball.
Yeah. This team makes no sense at all. Sense at all. But you keep adding because there's no great team. Every team is like the Phillies. There really is no great team. The Mets got on a run, but the Mets are only still just like a game and a half up on the Phils. The Mets lost to the Padres today. They lost a couple of games here over the course of the weekend. The Giants are falling apart. The Brewers have the best record in the National League. I think actually the best record in baseball, and it's with an under 600 winning percentage. It's the latest in the season. The best team in baseball hasn't had a 600 winning percentage. So it is a league full of parity right now, and Dave Dombrowski understands the cost for getting this guy was absolutely reasonable. And I give credit to the Twins for not holding out and asking for the moon. I'm actually kind of surprised the Twins decided to pull the trigger when they didn't need to do this right now.
No,
they really didn't. And that's kind of what's interesting. Could they have waited till the offseason? Could they have waited till the next trade deadline and maybe held out for something better? But they obviously really like Mick Abel and Eduardo Taite, and that's great news for us.
Yeah, like I said, there's I think you're right that there could have been a place, or at least certainly value, for either of those guys in the Phillies system moving forward. But I think a lot of what you were seeing from Mick Abel's like chances was, hey, look, here's a guy. Perhaps you'd like to trade for him, should the need arise, and putting him out there and, letting him, show what he's got, which occasionally didn't look great, was enough for some other teams to get interested in that. The Twins were one of those teams. I think, it was really fortunate for the Phillies, because you're right. I think one of the bigger points of this is that the Phillies didn't trade from within those big three prospects at the top of the list, and now they get to say they held on to those guys. I mean, we'll see what happens with this bat. Now I'm very curious. I'm very curious because now he's being so clear and saying like, okay, bullpen's done, we're switching to bat. Which the question was even, are they going to make a move for a bat? Is that even something they will do, or just something they should? So now I'm very curious about what the near future holds for the Phillies farm system, or just their batting order.
Couple interesting comments. I do want to get to the bat aspect of this in just a second, but a couple other things Dombrowski said. He said, I really didn't think this one was possible a couple of days ago. He said that talks with President of Baseball Operations Derek Falvey got serious during the Phillies' 3.5 hour rain delay in Chicago today, and that it wasn't close until about 6 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Central time. So maybe we can thank the rain delay in Chicago today for giving Dave Dombrowski a little extra time to hit the phones. But it sounds as though this really didn't come together. You get a window into how fast these things can happen, right? I mean, that's pretty funny. And then
it's a rain delay during trade season.
Yep. So as far as Andrew Painter, if you're thinking about him being moved in any future moves or anything like that, forget about that. Dombrowski said, we're just not moving him. We're not trading him. I know a couple of other guys we told, we're not trading them either. So
wow. There's
Andrew
a couple
Painter,
of guys who've been told that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So he said, we got a really good guy that we have control over. I think it makes a big difference. The control aspect is huge, and I think we have a chance to win. A lot of times you can't get a guy like this. So very interesting that this came together as quickly as it did. Duran has a 30.9% swing and miss rate. Through Tuesday, Phillies relievers combined for a 23.7% whiff rate, 25th among 30 teams in baseball. So, Justin, you mentioned it. Dave Dombrowski said after the game that they are done with the reliever market. This is, of course, after acquiring David Robertson. Robertson has been pitching in AAA. It's expected that he will join the team probably within the next week or so. And so this is it. This is the bullpen. All right. You're going to have Duran. You're going to have Robertson. You're going to have Orion Kerkering, Matt Strom, Tanner Banks. Jose Alvarado will be with the team for the regular season, which will, I think, be a help. We'll see what he looks like when he comes back. And then you're going to have to kind of mix and match with some bullpen guys, with some relievers, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. I feel like you were also talking about Jesus Luzardo being the starter who gets moved to the bullpen.
There was an article today where they really seem to be pushing on that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely happening, and probably maybe sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think they feel like there's enough like loose parts to this that you can at least get some change out there, a little more wholesale. And I feel like inevitably this is all going to get compared to the Mets and what they've done. And yeah, I think there's some laughableness to some of these comparisons based on what the Mets can now throw at you, which, by the way, is Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Helsley, and Edwin Diaz, among others. But that's a bunch of hard throwers and elite high leverage relievers. And the Phillies, I don't know if that group of guys we just listed you could describe the same way. How likely do you think it is that somebody like Orion Kerkering, whom the Phillies came into this season saying, okay, this guy can fill this role because he's going to develop, he's going to take a step forward. Do you feel like in what is now basically August, we can still expect one of these guys that were supposed to like take a step to take that step and, essentially become the kind of bullpen guy you can rely on in here in the last few months of the season? I mean, I don't have particularly high hopes for that. I think we've kind of seen what we're going to get, that, maybe hopefully when the team really needs it, one or two of these guys is within one of those 2 to 3 week windows where they look like a pretty solid reliever and can get 3 outs on the regular, and not outside of one of those periods where they're just like, I guess I've thrown one of these before. Is it like this? And then the ball goes 800 feet in the other direction. So, yeah, I feel like the lack of quantity is going to rub people the wrong way here. But ultimately, the Phillies got one of the game's best closers, and hopefully they have the talent that can be spread out enough.
Yeah.
And that can still be effective around him.
Yeah, I don't know that this bullpen is good enough. I think it's as good as they can make it now without completely giving up the farm. I was surprised Dombrowski said they were done in the reliever market. I was surprised to hear him say that.
I didn't think another pitcher of this level was on the table, but
no.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought like real quick, shot chaser, that there was going to be another move made kind of in tandem with this one. Cause that can happen as well. And Middleton made reference to Dombrowski doing something in one fell swoop during his conversation with Jason Stark. But yeah, I was a little surprised by that as well. I mean, the bullpen is better just because there's an awesome pitcher now in it who has been awesome for quite some time. And knowing that he's waiting at the back of the bullpen is, that's good. But yeah, ultimately it's not going to change how I feel about any of these other guys when they come into the game, and they all still kind of like have the same flaws. So I was thinking today, before any moves were made, like they can't win a World Series with this bullpen. When the season started, you're thinking, okay, maybe these things that they're relying on to happen are going to happen. And, sure, they could win the World Series with this bullpen, but we've seen them in action for far too long to truly look at what this team gives up. I mean, even in this game in Chicago that they won, Daniel Roberts out there giving up, almost giving up the store in the bottom of the ninth when they're up 6-0. Like, what are you doing? So this bullpen has just bled runs all season long. And maybe now they won't when Duran is pitching, but there just always is going to exist that chance because guys like Romano, guys like Kerkering, guys like Strom, they haven't been at their best this year or have never gotten there.
Well, and I intentionally did not list Jordan Romano among the relievers that I was just talking about because I think that's going to go down as one of the worst free agent moves of Dave Dombrowski's career. I don't see him pitching for this team down the stretch, and especially not in pressure packed situations. He's not going to be on the October roster.
You can't put him out there, man. Come on,
you can't.
He's just that face that was briefly a sub meme after he gave up that home run really early in the season, where it's just sheer panic and terror. And oh man, I just ruined everything. Wow, that's what I assume is waiting for us every time he comes into a game. You couldn't have taken yourself seriously and gone forward with him pitching in high leverage situations.
I will just, before we get to the bat aspect of things, what do we make of what the Mets did here on Wednesday? They went out and got Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley. Ryan Helsley is a guy that had been connected to the Phillies for a couple of years now, going back to last year, and he was one of the big names. In fact, at one point today, I thought it was far more likely Ryan Helsley was coming to Philadelphia than Duran. Instead, as a rental, the Mets pay a price with two minor leaguers for Ryan Helsley, and they also got Tyler Rogers, two very good right-handers. And now you put them in a bullpen with Edwin Diaz. They have a lot of options there, throwing from the right side in the back of that bullpen. The Mets bullpen on paper is stronger than the Phillies bullpen. I don't think there's a whole lot of doubt in that because Helsley's really good. I mean, as good as Duran is, Helsley may not be quite as good, but I think if we had gotten Ryan Helsley as Phillies fans, we would have been very happy with that pickup as well. I think in terms of the overall trade, what the Phillies gave up to get Duran and what the Mets gave up to get a rental like Helsley, like the Mets just found a solution for the next 2 months. The Phillies found one for the next 2.5 years. So obviously there's way more value in Duran in terms of a trade chip. But in terms of right now, the Mets have really made some good additions here on Wednesday and made their bullpen much more formidable.
Yeah, just from like an emotional standpoint, somebody like Gregory Soto may not be, when he's the first new arm acquired, that may not be particularly thrilling or comforting to Mets fans. But when you think in terms of like, okay, that's their David Robertson, and then they kept piling on, a couple more pitchers who are, very good and really improve their bullpen. Suddenly Soto kind of like looks better just by, proximity, the way that if the Phillies had kept adding to their bullpen, the David Robertson deal would be like, oh yeah, and there's Robertson. He could be something. Sure. I think that kind of just changes morale in general. But, yeah, the Mets gave up a lot of prospects numerically, but the read is that they didn't really give up too much talent-wise, or certainly not an unacceptable amount. Multiple arms and multiple options. All of them are showing some level of like promise or dominance. Tyler Rogers, that submarine delivery has reduced the potential for like damage and injury, and he's just been this like stalwart, totally reliable reliever for San Francisco exclusively since his career started. And he's 34. He's only played for the Giants. So he's the kind of guy who's throwing you like an 82-mile-an-hour pitch, and you're just waiting for Harper or Schwarber to eat it for dinner, and then they like whiff at it, and then leave the bases loaded. And then Helsley, another hard thrower. He's been around since like 2022. Feels like he's been around for 10 years for some reason. He can hit 99 with that fastball, but hitters are smashing it this year. They're hitting it over 400 on his fastball.
Wow.
But his slider is unhittable. So it all has just kind of like evened out. He's been a high leverage reliever since 2022, and he's kept his ERA down at 2.77. So yeah, the Mets got two guys who are, very, very, very good pitchers to have in your bullpen, even if Helsley's not pitching as dominant as he did last year. Whew. But like you said, they're all on 1-year deals, and that's what we'll tell ourselves when they're hoisting a trophy.
That's right. Exactly. We'll soothe ourselves with that. Last thing on the Phillies bullpen, just give me your overall confidence level, scale of 1 to 10. The Phillies have a 1-run lead in Game 5 of the NLCS, and you have to get through the last 3 innings, and you've got David Robertson, Matt Strahm, Ryan Kirkring, Jhoan Duran. What's your confidence level? You get through the end of that game with that 1-run lead.
Well, I think the thing to end on is what it was before the Phillies acquisition today, and it would probably have been like
3,
4? 5 at the most was what I was going to say.
I was thinking 3 or 4. That's kind of where I was.
And he bumps you up to like an 8.
Yeah, 7 or 8. That's exactly. Yeah. We're in lockstep there. That's about what I was thinking too. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, great move by the Phillies, by Dave Dombrowski, his most consequential trade since taking over as the head of baseball operations for the Phillies. And Dave says, to quote him, well, we're not done. He said, we're not done talking. He fixed himself there. He caught himself. I think he was really coming out of this trade feeling himself. I think he was really, he came out and he was like, yeah, absolutely. And here are all my plans. I'm going to read aloud from my diary. I didn't think when Tuesday night was over, we were doing anything. But then
it is impossible for me to feel shame right now. I don't know what to tell you. So guess what? I'm going to make more deals. I'm going to be up all night making nothing but deals. I'm going to be texting everybody blindly, not even going to look at what numbers or who I'm offering to them. And then he was like, oh, hang on. What I mean is we're going to have conversations. We're going to check in on people. And, and then he returned to being a sane person.
Well, he said the deadline's not over. It's very tough to acquire 2 players right now, so we just kind of have to see what happens on Thursday. But Dave Dombrowski is saying that the team will look for an upgrade in the outfield. Now, whether that means Scott Lauber reported that they have discussed a move for Diamondbacks third baseman Eugenio Suarez. But that would require moving someone to the outfield, Kyle Schwarber or Bryce Harper. Of course, we all know Bryce Harper has volunteered to go back to left field. We've talked about that on previous podcasts and why that wasn't part of the deal when Rhys Hoskins was a free agent. I still think they made the right call there, but I get why we're kind of thinking like, what's that all about? Bryce Harper hasn't played outfield since the first half of 2022, by the way. So just so everybody's aware, or Kyle Schwarber going back to the outfield. That's what a Eugenio Suarez situation would be. And I don't think, even for a rental like Eugenio Suarez, I think they might give up Crawford for him. They're not giving up Aiden Miller. They're not giving up Andrew Painter for a rental. They're just not doing it. So I'm skeptical that Suarez is coming. but it sure sounds like that they are looking for an upgrade in the outfield. The Angels this week have been telling teams that they're not selling. They're actually going to be buying, and they actually went out and got a couple of relievers, looking at that like 3% Fangraphs playoff odds and saying, yeah, this is the year to go all in. So I don't think Joe Adell or Taylor Ward is going to be on the market here. So it really does kind of limit the kinds of bats that are out there for Dave Dombrowski to go after. Luis Robert Jr., of course, we just talked about on the last podcast. The Phillies just saw him for 3 games in Chicago. It sounds like the Mets are maybe the other team that may be going after Luis Robert Jr. as hard as the Phillies are right now. These two teams going after the same. We're just trying to get the same girl, man. This rivalry has taken on a weird turn, Justin.
This is going to get out of hand fast if they're both chasing the same bat. And based on the description and the context you just laid out, I was like, it's got to be him, right? Like it's got to be him.
There.
I mean, granted, you say that, and then Dombrowski goes out there, and you're like, "All right, him." I guess I just had never considered that that's who you would trade for. Okay, interesting. But in any case, this could get pretty dicey. I mean, the Phillies can really use. I mean, you think of it like they really only seem likely to acquire like 2 guys, but you could say they have spots for 2 new, better relievers and a bat. And if they're choosing to just fill 2 of those 3 spots, one with an arm and one with a bat, then I guess they're hoping they can have a significant impact on the lineup. So that's I'm just sick of watching this team not win games that it should win. And I need the offense to like be in on that and a part of that. And I don't know, is Luis Robert, again, another guy that's the type of guy who's kind of defined this season for the Phillies, which is like, can this guy turn the corner like for us? Like, can this guy bounce back from something over here? Can we benefit from giving somebody a chance? Because, there's some pretty high profile examples of that not working for the Phillies this year. But that being said, it would be very exciting. It would be very exciting to get Luis Robert. I do think, as much as a change of scenery guy can be a gamble, I do think that he is a pretty safe bet as far as being one of those guys. I think he at least deserves the chance to show his output in a situation where the morale is higher. So I do think, and I think the power that he is capable of, that's been like a little dormant, would be of huge benefit for this Phillies lineup in a league that is starved for power. When they're not getting it or weren't getting it from guys that they typically get it from, it would be a boost, I think, for this lineup. You can look at looking at his numbers and they've been down this year and everything. I'm still willing to give that a shot. I think everybody is aware of what this guy can do. I think that's the kind of boost that this lineup could really use.
I'm just curious, what would the Phillies give up for Luis Robert Jr.? Because he has had such a rough go of it the last 2 years, but is playing really well over the last month and a half or so. And we know that he is a down ballot MVP guy in 2023, that he has the ability to be a 6 or 7 win player. The fact that he is still very young. And there is some team control there. If he were to come to Philadelphia and put up an insane 2 months, my guess is the Phillies might pick up the team option and make him their center fielder and kind of go from there. So they would have that flexibility. It wouldn't have to be just a 2-month rental if they didn't want it to be. Now, he'd really have to show them something. But with Mick Abel gone and Eduardo Taite gone, and certainly the Phillies are not trading any one of their top 3 guys for Luis Robert Jr. As like Arun Escobar, I think people would be up in arms if he went in a deal for Luis Robert Jr. So I'm trying to think all right, well, who else is there? Who else is left that you would move in a deal for a player like that? And I guess that's the question: is what caliber of bat is Dave Dombrowski talking about? I'll make this prediction. I don't think, based on who we've heard being out there, I think that Crawford, Painter, and Miller are all staying. I don't think any one of those guys is going to be on the way out tomorrow. I don't see it. I don't see the player that they can get that would move any one of those 3 guys. And if it's Luis Robert Jr., who's their number 5 prospect? It's probably Arun Escobar. And the guys who are after that, are they good enough for the White Sox to basically would they be better than what the Mets would be willing to give up to get Luis Robert Jr.? And he's just a tough one to figure out in general. Ramon Laureano is another guy from Baltimore who you're not giving up Arun Escobar for him. I just don't think you are. But I don't know. What else? I mean, do you take like Brandon Marsh go in a deal with a lower level guy? You know, like what is Baltimore looking for? It's interesting. They moved the two most movable guys went in this deal for Duran, and now you're kind of like, okay, what are we dealing from now?
Well, and that was an issue that was being talked about again before any deals were happening. As the potential blueprints were being laid out, it was like, well, they might want to get cute with a reliever so that they have the prospect capital to spend on the outfield bat that they want to get. But clearly that didn't happen because, like you said, they moved their two most movable pieces to get the bullpen arm they wanted. And now, yeah, it is kind of a contradiction of ideas when you look at like, okay, who is likely to go and who's really going to be of such high interest to other teams that the Phillies are going to be dealing with. That makes Dombrowski confident enough to come out and say like, oh yeah, we're going to switch to looking for a bat. And, we're not done with an asterisk. Like, he seems pretty confident that something's going to happen. But like you said, yeah, where are you pulling from? And Matt Winkelman kind of said the same thing. He was like, you really only have Aiden Miller and Arun Escobar as big chips remaining. Yeah. So that does kind of tell you like what kind of move the Phillies would be capable of making. I don't know. Maybe this is the first Dave Dombrowski deal, the kind of deal that brings in a big talent, but also really tests people's ability to accept things because he's a small explosion of the farm system, trading a couple of guys that people really don't want to let go of. I don't know. This is why we're in a curious position, and Dombrowski's in a curious position here. It's been a weird trade deadline as far as who's available and what is wrong that you need to address, but I guess it might just take another rain delay for us to see what happens next.
Yeah. Any more 3.5-hour rain delays coming? The Phillies have an off day tomorrow. Most of Major League Baseball has an off day tomorrow. It's supposed to storm all afternoon tomorrow, so maybe that would have helped. But hey, the off day for everybody, they'll be in their offices, so maybe something gets done. Yeah, I think there's 2 games on the docket for Thursday, and I don't know if that was done accidentally or not, but it looks like there's they've kind of cleared the schedule, so GMs and team presidents like Dave Dombrowski could be on the phones all day and the baseball writers could really focus on the task at hand here. Which again, after nobody really cares that the Phillies lost this game on Wednesday and lost 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Normally I'd be doing the solo podcast here midweek, going out of my mind, losing 2 out of 3 to this team and this Jekyll and Hyde team that the Phillies have. I think I'm gonna end with this because we're gonna some combination of us will be back for a post-trade deadline recap podcast. Even if the Phillies don't make any more moves, we'll just kind of go over what the rest of Major League Baseball did. But as we sit here and look at this baseball team that is still in a great position, playing in a National League that has no great team. Even the Dodgers, they're not a great team. They're a good team, very good team, where essentially everyone is on even footing here. The Phillies are right now the second wild card. That's where they are, but they are just a game and a half behind the Mets in the East. The Mets are very fallible. So this is, even though they're only playing 500 ball for like almost 2 months now, they're a team that can get hot. We saw that with 2022. We saw that with 2023 in a lot of respects. So this is a team that will play 500 ball for a couple of months and then can find it, can turn it on. And we've seen, like you mentioned, they swept the Blue Jays when they were at their hottest this year. This team can beat any team. They've beaten a slew of really good teams this year on the road and at home. So the capability is there. It's just these hiccups against bad teams, they're just so frustrating and they make you doubt. And I think that's where a lot of Phillies fans are kind of here at the trade deadline. They're doubting whether or not this team, because they're not dominant, because they lose series like this, there's doubt that this team can win a World Series. But I just want to get it through to people. They can win a World Series. And just because they're not, it does mirror last year a little bit, right? The second half where they're playing 500 ball. That is scary. You want to see them turn it on, but there's 2 more months for them to turn this thing on. If, the end of September, they're still playing 500 ball, I'm with you. I'll be very skeptical on their ability to go on an October run. But there's still time, and that's why Dave Dombrowski is doing this. There is an opportunity here for this team to take a pennant and go to the World Series again.
You said at the top of the show, the Phillies bullpen ERA is 4.33. But just to put that in context, the only teams with bullpens with higher ERAs than that are the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Nationals. They also have, I was quoting this to Tim Jackson on a couple of shows ago, but the Phillies in the month of June were at least top 3, but typically number 1 in like every starting pitching category you could want to excel at. They had just an unbelievable month that has continued. Like that's a definitive aspect of this season. But in June particularly, they were just absolutely crushing it with their starting pitching, and their record that month was 1 game over 500.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is there's a lot of winnable games that the Phillies have utterly lost this year, where if they had just gotten one more hit with runners in scoring position, or had one more guy who could come in and shut down the other offense just one more time, they would have a handful more of wins. And that in a race with this much parity this season, which is like very interesting and exciting for baseball, but terrifying for a pennant race, that could have made a huge difference for the Phillies so far this year. So at least giving themselves that option once a game of bringing in an elite level pitcher from your bullpen, it doesn't fix that problem, but it does, perhaps create a few more wins where there otherwise wouldn't have been. And a bat, whatever bat they acquire, could accomplish the same thing if it's the right guy.
Well, folks, the Phillies went out and they accomplished at least part of their mission. They went out and they got the top shelf controllable closer that they have desperately been seeking for the last few years. They'll have Jaron Duran for the next 3 seasons, the end of this season, and then 2 more after this. Dave Dombrowski does the thing here with 1 day to go before the trade deadline, and the Phillies may not be done yet. So we'll be back with another Hittin' season on Thursday night to recap the trade deadline. We'll see if Dombrowski does anything else for the Phillies. In the meantime, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. And again, please tell your friends and family members about the Hittin' Season podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you get your podcasts. And all of these podcasts are now available on our Hittin' Season YouTube channel as well. So just go to YouTube, type Hittin' Season in the search bar, and then subscribe to this page, the Hittin' Season YouTube page, and you can watch us on your smart TV or listen to us that way as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.